Welcome. My name's Susan Morgan. I'm the founder and director of IndiMarin, and this is our volunteer orientation. So glad so many of you are here joining us tonight. So what I'm going to do, it's going to be pretty informal, but I'm just going to first give everyone a little bit of a short history and bring you up to speed on IndiMarin today and the direction that we're headed for 2025, which, as you can imagine, is a work in progress. Every day is different and new things are happening, but we have a general view of our direction. And then I'm going to screen share and walk through our website, because we've created our website to be a resource for all of you, really a working reference point that you can be using daily in your activism to make choices about which actions and which path is best for you. So I'll do a walkthrough of that, and then we'll save plenty of time for questions and answers. With me this evening are three of our steering committee members. Betsy Guthrie is managing the Zoom. She is our tech guru, and Lori Friedman is with us and will be helping me with the question and answer portion, because she is our electoral advisor and really our expert on everything related to elections. And Joy Friedman is our postcarding leader and helps in many other ways, and she's here, will be assisting in chat.
Real quick, Susan, I think the video has been turned off for all the people that are here that came in now. They're not able to come off video or come onto video.
Let's fix that.
Yeah, so we need to fix that.
Betsy, are you on that?
She's muted.
Yeah, and speaking of that, once we get our side of it fixed, we really love it if people will come on camera.
Yeah, it looks like it got fixed. Everybody's back on video now. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, it just makes for a much more personal meeting to be able to see all your lovely faces. So briefly about our history, I started IndiMarin in January of 2017 with two neighbors, and we continued to be a small, in 2017, we were, along with other indivisible chapters, very much part of the resistance in the first Trump administration. Protest rallies, calling our members of Congress, etc., like we're doing again now, unfortunately. And then in 2018, it became clear that without power in Washington, we could be resisting till the cows come home, but really wouldn't be able to affect major change. So we, along with many groups like us, decided to focus on the electoral work in 2018 of the midterms. And in fact, as a collective, we were able to take back the House in 2018, which really was hugely important in stopping much of the harm of the Trump administration the first time. And then we have really continued. One of the things that's unique, and I think an asset of Indivisible as a national organization, there are indivisible chapters throughout the country. But what is unique is that indivisible groups do both the electoral work in election years, and then in non-election years do advocacy work. So some groups like Swing Left, for example, and we are a Swing Left affiliate and work closely with Swing Left and admire Swing Left, but just as a point of comparison, they don't do the advocacy work. They stick strictly to election work. So I think it really creates, doing both, I think creates a more robust and consistent effort that we can all be part of year after year. And then one of the things that changed dramatically for us was in 2020, which of course, again, was a big election year, and it was the year of COVID. So we retooled all of our programs, which included things like phone banks and postcard writing events and other in-person campaign events. We retooled all that to take place on Zoom. And after doing so, we realized that there was no reason we couldn't welcome people from any location. And so we did that. And my background prior to doing this work was in marketing and PR. So I was able to realize that if we promoted our events on multiple platforms and multiple mobilized accounts, et cetera, we'd have more reach. And so we've grown very dramatically. We're now over 9,000 members, close to 10 actually, with 25% now in Marin and 35% in California outside of Marin, and the other 40% scattered in states around the country. I haven't been able to peek at the chat and see how you've introduced yourself, but often in our meetings, there are people coming from different parts of the country. And we love that. And there's a lot of opportunities for working with people in red states and districts in this moment, for example. But it does present some challenges to us as organizational leaders, because a lot of groups are strictly local, and therefore they're catering to a geographical group that all live in the same area. So in-person events are more important and reach the entire group. And then there are local issues that are meaningful to the entire group. So given that we are so geographically disparate, and also recognizing that in this moment, there are so many ways that each of us as individuals can have impact and take action and do good, that it's not really appropriate any longer for IndiMarin to say to all of you, hey, here's the 3 most important things you can do this week, which, historically, we've sort of been able to do that. We've been able to keep up with the landscape and really identify high impact actions and steer everyone in that direction. But now there's so many options, which is a good thing. And it depends a lot on where you live and how much time you have to give and what your personal passions are around issues, be it climate change or gun reform or democracy, all these things. So we've decided to kind of step back from the idea that we would be guiding each person, if you will, in their activism, and instead provide you with the resources to determine your own path and to support you as much as we can in that way. So I guess with that, Betsy, Laurie, am I missing anything before we go to the screen share with the video walkthrough? Okay, great. I think I'll do that now, because I think once you see the website, it'll start to feel, it'll come to life a little bit more for everyone. Okay, so bear with me while I get all my buttons arranged. Okay, so this is our homepage. This is where you want to send people who would like to join us. They click on this Join Us button and fill that out, and then they will be added to our mailing list. This text here basically says what I just said. And then it imports onto the homepage upcoming events and recent news, which recent news really means our recent newsletters. So if you're not necessarily great about keeping up with your email, or you feel like you haven't heard from us in a while, it's possible that you missed an email or it went to your junk folder or whatever, you can always come here and read the most recent emails, which we really encourage you to do. And now then we've reconfigured our nav bar. This nav bar used to be very focused around elections. And now it is structured for this moment, with the main verbs, the main operative verbs here being learn, fight, and elect. And so starting with learn, in this moment, it is really important that we all do our homework. And I know it can be hard, but things change so much. There's a lot of, the mainstream news is doing a terrible job. So historically, a lot of us have relied on the mainstream news to stay up to date, but more and more, it's really not that helpful of a way to stay up. And it's certainly not a helpful way to stay up on how you can help. So thankfully, a number of Substack authors, hopefully you're all familiar with the Substack platform. It's come on very strong over the last couple of years. And it's basically a platform where authors can post newsletters of their own. And a lot of major influencers now have their own Substack. And we've identified here 4 of our favorites. The list could be 10 because there's a lot of great people writing good material, but we didn't want to overwhelm you. And you might want to subscribe to 1 or 2 of these or all of them. It really depends on your appetite for getting a lot of email. Because you can then subscribe for them to come into your inbox. My personal preference is to get a lot of email, and then I just scan, I make short work of my inbox, even if I've got 100 emails, which I know a lot of people get very nervous if they are getting too much email, and it's a personal preference. But personally, I like a lot of incoming information, and I can then be in control of what I read carefully, what I just scan, what I don't have time for that day and just delete without reading. But encourage you to check out these authors. You may have some of your own that are favorites. Feel free to put any favorites you have in the chat. But this is a starting point. And I do want to point out that Chop Wood, Carry Water by Jess Craven really is a great source of daily actions. We will still be sending out actions from time to time, like, call your representatives or join this phone bank or don't shop on a certain day. We'll be sending out emails, but we're not going to be doing it so often that we can cover all the bases. So Jess is really for people that want to be doing something every day and want a source of inspiration every day for like, oh, what could I do today? Really strongly encourage Jessica Craven's Chop Wood, Carry Water. And then here are some of the more traditional news outlets that we think are doing a good job in this moment. The Guardian US is great, ProPublica. Midas Touch News is a newer one of these upstart media organizations that's really meeting the moment and filling the void for mainstream media. Democracy Docket covers legal. And again, this is my personal preference, but I keep my New York Times subscription because I think it's important to see what the mainstream news is reporting. So we know what other people are reading. And I consider the New York Times to be better than others. So I have kept that subscription. Then in the fight category, you can see the various drop downs here: call your reps, protest rallies, step up your commitment, and be a messenger. And I'm just going to quickly talk about each. You know, in this moment, calling our reps is a very, very important advocacy tool. And it's especially important for any of you who have a Republican member of Congress. We do want to keep encouraging our Democratic members of Congress to step up and do more. But there is a lot of encouraging developments in the Democratic caucus right now. So we think it's important to find a good balance of, you know, not putting all of our energy into haranguing our Democratic members of Congress who are doing their best in a very difficult environment. But absolutely important to stay on Republican members of Congress. So if you don't have a Republican member of Congress, a great way you can help with that is reaching out to any friends or family members you have that do, and encouraging them to call their Republican members of Congress. And on our to-do list is to put together a toolkit for people to do that relational organizing, reaching out to people they know with Republican representatives. And we're also going to have on our calendar shortly a training session led by Lori and some of our other leaders that will walk you through the sort of tips and tools about making calls. There's a great app, it's listed here. 5 calls can make it very easy to get the number and a script on any day. So here again, if after the meeting you take some time to go through every web page so you can see the various links we've made available to you. Here's a link to look up your members of Congress. We've really tried to give you what you need to take action on your own in any given day. Protest rallies. This is a extremely popular topic now, and it's changing very dynamically. Indivisible National, together with Move On and Working Families Parties, led a national protest a couple of weeks ago that was in front of Senator's office that was very successful. But also a more organic coalition has sprung up. I imagine most of you have heard of it. It goes by various names, but the most common is 50-51, which stands for 50 events in 50 states on one day was the original protest. And now there are more and more. There's going to be a national action for protests on March 4th, which is the day of the State of the Union. There's a bit of mixed, you'll read some mixed feelings about on this development, because on the one hand, it's amazing that organically people are taking to the streets. And honestly, those protests have achieved more participants and more media coverage than the protests led by the national groups. So that's awesome. At the same time, the leaders are remaining a bit anonymous. And so there's not really a strong infrastructure or clear leadership, which can pose problems in terms of safety and who knows what. Excuse me. So what we've tried to do for all of you is give you the links where you can search, under, various websites to find protests near you of this nature. And also some links here for safety. Hey, Betsy, could you do the next page? Because I need to mute and cough.
Oh, sure. Okay, hang on. Let me get up and share my screen. Hang on.
shall I continue now?
Yeah, you can. I was just, I had to get mine all
Okay,
queued
I
up, but you're back. You're
apologize.
still on. Okay,
I
I think you're still
apologize,
on without
everyone.
any trouble. Okay.
Sometimes I get these coughing fits that last longer than that one did. Okay. They're a little stress related, so I imagine you can all relate to the being under stress. So this link here, Step Up Your Commitment, is really our invitation for any of you who would like to stay involved, be more than a solo activist. The way that we've looked at the way we're structured is we have a steering committee of 7 people that makes the decisions for the organization with input, of course, from our members. And then we have a broader leadership team that now numbers about 30 in total. And how we define being on the leadership team is really anyone that will step up to take an ongoing role, that we can count on you, even if it's small, like I'll be the person that does the downloads from every meeting and does the data entry to put them in the spreadsheet, or I'll be the person that is available for phone banks to train new people. So sometimes these leadership roles don't involve a whole lot of time, but they do involve an ongoing commitment. And we're now looking for additional people to step up, because in this new environment, we need more people that are willing to help coordinate protest rallies or, any number of new ways of taking action. We would like to have more in-person events in Marin, which is our home base, but we need people to step up to be the organizers of that, with a direction from the steering committee. So you'll see here that the main categories where we're really looking for additional help is in event organizing, meeting facilitation, digital graphic design, tech systems and platforms, social media, and computer admin. And so we have, there's a little more details here, a little bit about our culture. And if you are interested, here is the form. You can click to apply, and then one of us will meet with you to learn more about what you're interested in and your skill set and all that. And be a messenger. This, honestly, we need to flesh out more, but it really, I guess I just want to say that a very important way we can all make a difference now is in our daily interactions out in the world. First of all, be kind, be the person that opens the door or helps, an elderly person with her bags or whatever it is. Be warm if people are feeling very isolated now. Just let's be role models for democratic values in our interactions in the world. And when we can, have meaningful conversations. If, for example, you're chatting with a group of friends, let's just assume your friends are all Democrats and everyone's like, the sky is falling, this is so horrible, the world's coming to an end. Try to be the person that says, yeah, it's horrible, and we can be taking action. And, have you considered joining a group? Or, so just try in your personal life to add value in conversations. And this webpage gives some tips for being an active listener, listening, and then being constructive. And we're going to flesh that out more as time goes by. And then lastly, and I'm actually pretty on time here, so that's good. Elect. We do have elections this year, and the most The one that's coming up quickest and is hugely important is the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, which will affect decisions regarding gerrymandering in Wisconsin, which will affect, potentially the midterms. So this is a really, really pivotal race. And we're postcarding. If you live in Marin, Joy leads a great gathering of people once a month at Panera in Nevada writing postcards. Or if you can't make that event or you live elsewhere, we have links here for how you can request addresses, order supplies. We are partners with, let's see, I guess that's a little lower. Wait, oh, here it is. I'm sorry. We're partners with the Bay Area Coalition. They're leading on phone banks for this race. So click here, sign up to phone bank. If you are a texter, if you've done texting, there's opportunities through Black Voters Matter. Anyway, here is where we will be putting links for ways to help with the elections in 2025. We have not yet decided on whether or not we're going to be actively involved in some of the other special elections, but we will certainly keep you apprised. And then lastly, our calendar page is a really important reference here. What we've started doing is putting events from other groups here. So for example, Leah and Ezra, the co-founders of Indivisible National, are doing these weekly meetings. What's the plan? They're excellent. Leah and Ezra are doing a great job in this moment. They're uber smart. They're way out front on ways we can help. Highly recommend. What they're doing. Common Cause is doing this phone bank where you call voters in red states and encourage them to call their reps. So anyway, you can go through this, but we've started posting. We used to just post our own events on our calendar, and now we're posting events of other groups that we think are, of high value. Yeah, I think that's it for the walkthrough. And at this point, we will start the Q&A session. So I forget who's lobbing me the questions. Is that you, Joy, or Lori? I'm not sure.
There aren't too many, so if people have any, please go ahead and stick them in the chat, but I can tell you what's happened so far. Bill asked, is everybody feeling confident that we'll have a midterm election at all? I'm happy to field that.
Yeah, why don't you field that, Lori?
Yeah. It's such a great question, right? It's like the elephant in the room. Yes, I think we will have a midterm election. What it's going to look like, who knows? But yes, I do think that we will have them. Another question, and we have a very good chance to get the House back in that election if things keep going the way they are.
Lori, do you want to spell that out maybe a little more, like what we need to get the House back?
Because it actually ties into somebody else's question, which was, are there any actions that are proactive rather than reactive, perhaps planning for longer term goals like 2026 and 2028? 2028 is too far away. 2026 is right around the corner, in about 9 months. We'll be full into it. People are already launching campaigns and things are going on. As far as actual work in those elections, no, it's too early for that, besides perhaps giving to an incumbent candidate that'll be running in the House or somebody in your area who's already launched a campaign. The actual work itself is too early, but we are definitely, everything that happens between now and next January, when people start filing and the campaigns really open up, is to gain momentum. So we've already won special elections across the country, small ones, but overperforming the numbers from November already. We just have to keep that going. So the big one, like Susan said, is the Wisconsin election that just builds infrastructure and momentum and forces Republicans that are running to have to take a stand on what's happening. That's what we want to see. We've got 3 congressional elections, 2 in Florida that are not winnable really for us, but if you live in the area, you know, it's great to get that really loud. We'll probably have one that we're working in New York later in the year, but they haven't set a date for that and we don't have candidates. And then Virginia will be the big one in the fall. So we will definitely be working there. Virginia, not only is it important for Virginia, but we need that momentum going into the fall and really squeezing the Republican candidates and taking advantage of everything that's going on there. So yes, there'll be a lot to do. Won't be like last year. It'll be much more, the pace will be much slower, but there'll be lots to do in traditional election work that we're all used to.
Great. So I'm seeing, I see a couple questions about calling reps, and I'm gonna take those. And then there's several about elections that I'll turn back to you, Lori. So this is a question that comes up a lot, and it's essentially, can I call reps that aren't my own? And the short answer is it's no, it's not a good idea. As Betsy put in the chat, number one, it won't count. You know, all of these offices tally the calls. So it won't count. But you know, in a way it's doing a bit of harm because you're clogging up the lines. You know, we want the constituents to be able to get through. And these days, in some districts, the phones are just ringing off the hook. And so we don't want to be clogging up the lines and also perceived as a nuisance because it just really isn't the way it works. Like their job is to listen to their constituents. I would say I make somewhat of an exception to a person that has a national role. Like I would say Speaker of the House, that's a national role. I wouldn't be like calling, you know, every day or something, but if you were to call and say, I, as an American, you know, object to X, Y, and Z about, say, the budget, you know, package or whatever, it probably still wouldn't get recorded, but I don't know. I think that's a bit more of a reasonable thing to do. I wouldn't make it your top priority though, because it probably won't change anything. Someone asked about how often should we call, and can we call too much? And I would say absolutely we can be calling too much with our Democrats because and that guidance differs from some other groups. There are a lot of indivisible groups that are being very aggressive about getting everyone to call, and they're very unhappy with Democrats and they're not doing enough. At IndiMarin, we have done our homework and know that they are doing a lot, and sure could be more, and it's fine for us to advocate for more. But let's say you're a Democratic member of Congress in Southern California and your phone is ringing off the hook and your voicemail is full and people are trying to get through because their house burned down and they need assistance. You know, you're a veteran and I mean, that's a big part of what members of Congress do. They assist their constituents who need help. So I think that, you know, I personally wouldn't call my Democratic rep more than once a week at the most. That's my opinion. And now there's some good questions. I don't know if you've noticed them, Lori, about the elections, like the special elections. Let's see. Dylan is asking, are we running any phone banks for 3 upcoming House elections? And Richard is asking why Indivisible Mint isn't involved in the Florida special election.
I answered that in the chat, but I'll say it again. They're just not competitive enough to be able to justify the cost, really. They're very, very, very red. And even in today's environment, you know, these are districts that were won by 20 to 30 points. So it's just really unlikely. We'd love to make a showing there and make it stronger. But as far as groups being willing to invest the money into it. It's just not something that we're seeing very widespread unless you live in Florida or around Florida. And then obviously people will be more motivated. The New York race will be different, and we probably will mount a bigger effort to that. It's still in a really red district, but feels like it's a little bit more competitive. So it's really just a question of money and resources right now. And then somebody asked me something else. Sorry, I'm just going through this.
Well, I've got a couple while you find it.
Okay,
Lori.
all right. No, I think that was it.
So Lauren is asking about, is there a way to call Dems in red states to encourage them to call their reps? We believe that that is the most impactful thing that could be done right now. However, not many groups are funding the phone platform that makes that possible. As we said, and it's on our page for under elect, Common Cause does have a phone bank, but it's, it's once a week. You call into red states and you encourage them to call their reps, and you could even patch them right through to their reps' offices. It's outstanding. I've been kind of pestering Indivisible National to do something similar, but it's expensive. And, all these groups are doing their best with not enough money and not enough staff. And so that's why I really think all of us need to sit down one night with a notepad and think, who do I know that, my old college roommate? Yeah, I think she moved to Missouri. I haven't talked to her in a while. Let's do our own outreach. And even if it's, feels a little weird getting in touch with someone that you haven't spoken to in a long time, all of that work is free. And who knows, it might be nice to talk to your old college roommate you haven't talked to in 30 years. So we're going to try to formalize that. It's called relational organizing. We're going to try to formalize that a bit. But in the meantime, it doesn't really need to be formalized. Let's all of us think about anyone we know in a red state or district and reach out and just make sure they understand the importance of calling. Send them to our webpage, our How to Call Your Reps, tell them about the 5 Calls app. Let's really enable and empower our Democratic friends in red areas to be making those calls. Lori, do you have a question that you found?
Out of curiosity, what is the cost associated with phone banking? The cost are the lists. You have to purchase them from state parties or from your state. It's expensive, and then you have to curate them and get them whittled down to those, because there are millions and millions of names, to the people that are most likely going to react to your ask. And it really needs to be done by professional organizations. So we can't just start up a phone bank and do it ourselves. Somebody has to have access to the platform that is expensive to have. So there's a significant, it's still not as expensive as texting, but it is pricey. And I think we'll see more of it, but this early in a cycle, it's just most of these candidates that are running these smaller campaigns just don't have cash to do it on a year-round basis. It's got to be run by state parties, and they're not doing it at this point in the cycle in February, probably a little bit later in the year.
Okay, so Bill says, wow, an MOC that assists a constituent sounds nice. What district is that? I would say that's a lot of districts. I don't know where you live, Bill, but here in Marin, we've got an amazing member of Congress, Jared Huffman, and they do a lot. Most members of Congress work to do that. And let's see, someone brought up about calling committee members. I mean, again, I'd say that's in the same category as calling a speaker. You could make the case that they're serving in a national role. But again, a question I ask myself regularly, when I wake up in the morning is because there's so many things to do, right? So I always try to look at impact. what are the things I can do? How can I allocate my finite time most strategically to have impact? And I would say calling committee members, unless you're a constituent, is probably not that impactful. Because again, the person that's taking your call is probably not going to write it down because you're not a constituent. Someone's saying they're not asking for zip codes anymore. I don't know about that. Maybe that's true. I'm not really sure how they're filtering right now. But again, I feel like maybe some of the large groups that have been trumpeting about calling have overstated the impact of calling. You know, there's a lot of things we can be doing out in the world ourselves that isn't just haranguing members of Congress, because I got to say, I feel a little bad for those people, the Democrats in Congress. It's, you know, I'm sure they're working their tails off and are incredibly stressed, and they're in a very tough circumstances. So I think we shouldn't overly emphasize calls. They're good to do. It's a tool, but let's also do a lot of other stuff that where we're taking the action, we're making the difference ourselves in our lives.
I
Susan,
think where
there's
those calls are gonna make the biggest difference is if you have a specific ask. Like, I want you to vote such and such on a bill, or I need you to have a town hall because we haven't had one yet. So just calling to complain or is probably not gonna get on a tally count somewhere. When the staffer at the end of the day tallies up all their calls, it needs to be something that's very, very specific. So like yesterday, I called my two senators saying I would really like to see a town hall with Padilla and Schiff.
Mhm.
Our governor's done it several times. It's possible, we'd love to have that conversation with you or just hear from you personally, just to us. So something specific like that, I think goes a long way, but just calling because you're upset and you want to see them do something, it's probably not going to go very far.
Yeah. Okay.
Susan, there's a good question that
I
I'd like
know,
to just,
I'm looking at them. I see them.
oh,
Thanks.
on the document, the fourth one from the bottom.
Oh, I'm not in the document. I'm sorry. I'm in the chat.
I've run into people being afraid to call or text because they fear getting on an opposition list. What can we tell these folks to calm their fears?
I mean, honestly, everyone has to tolerate their own or assess their own risk tolerance. I personally, and I'm way more out there than the average volunteer. I don't think someone's coming after Susan Morgan, head of IndiMarin. I'm not losing sleep over that. So, but if someone is really, really a nervous type and that will make them not sleep, then, so I just think you have to, I don't think they're going to start coming after regular citizens. They've got so many more important people to be coming after,
Guys,
but
they want you to be afraid. You're just feeding into them. They
yeah,
want you to be afraid.
good point.
Okay, thank you.
So there are a couple of really good ones in the chat I want to address.
Sure.
The no buy day on Friday, 100%. We support that. I've been meaning to get an email out about that. There's a number of economic actions. And we are also going to get a webpage up about consumer advocacy because it really can be a very powerful tool. The call to action for Friday is no purchases other than essentials, medicine, if you've run out of your medicine, something like that. I think it's also okay to buy from a mom and pop thing, but no major chains, no gas, whatever. I think we should all support that. I think there's a lot of potential. Tesla stock took a major nosedive today because consumers in Europe don't want to buy Teslas. So I think as consumers, it's another great way for us to influence things. And we will be sharing out more about some of these, like I think upcoming, there's like a no Amazon week coming up and then, no Walmart week coming up. So we will have a webpage soon that will list that stuff. Okay, so moving on from that, Liz is asking any in-person events happening in Marin, and so not yet, because we don't really have anyone who's got the bandwidth to plan and organize them. If someone here had appetite for that and has some background in event organizing so that such a meeting would have a purpose and be well facilitated and all that, we would absolutely welcome your help. Do indie groups coordinate with the DNC? Interestingly, Lori and I have been meeting with grassroots leaders around the country regularly since the election to build a stronger connection to the DNC. The DNC historically has, looked at the grassroots kind of as an ATM and a free labor force, but not really interested in our input, which is based on a lot of field experience. And, so we're making the case to the DNC that the grassroots wants a seat at the table. We're starting a grassroots council, and we'll see how successful we are, but we're absolutely working on that. Thank you, Jeffrey, for that shout out. We're trying to help everyone to educate you, but everyone, spend an hour or so a day if you're retired. I know any of you out there with full-time jobs or kids in the house or anything, don't feel bad if you're not able to do a lot of these things. But those of us who have a full day, I'd say, spend a good hour doing your homework and spend a good hour taking action, and then you can feel pretty good about your contribution, and it all adds up. See, we've just got 10 minutes. I'm thinking it's a little hard to keep up with the chat. So I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here and say, let's start now with raising hands. And we'll, have people go off mute to ask their question, but really do ask that you ask a question, not offer a long opinion, and keep it to, 30 seconds or so. So feel
Susan,
free
I
to.
just want to add one thing that's
Yeah.
really important. Make sure that you're signed up on your representative and your senator's website to get their newsletters. Because if you're not signed up, you're not going to get invitations to town halls. They keep it pretty down, sort of, they play it low because of security issues. So even if you've called before or if you've donated to them, you will not necessarily be on their newsletter list, and you want to make sure you're on that. That's the best way of getting stuff from them that isn't asking for money, which I think we're all pretty tired of. So just make sure you do that. You'll get a lot better. You'll see a lot more attention from them.
Yeah, so feel free to raise your hand if you have a question that we haven't answered yet. Your virtual hand or your real hand, I guess. Kathleen.
I have a question about what you do as an organization to protect and encourage, protect our immigration community and friends in initiating a sanctuary movement for the county.
Yeah, I'm so glad you raised that. And I did see it in the chat and then lost track of it. So something kind of exciting has developed here in Marin. Are you in Marin? Okay.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. So Canal Alliance, you probably know, is an
Yes.
excellent organization serving the immigrant community. The executive director reached out to me yesterday by email saying that they are, having different events where they provide services, but that people are afraid to come. They're concerned about their safety. So they've asked IndiMarin if we could find volunteers that would be monitors in the parking lot and such. And I was like so happy to get that email because I have wanted to, have some way that we could support the immigrant community. And so I said, of course, yes. And we're meeting tomorrow and there will be more information on that. But
Lovely. Count me and I'll keep in touch.
there should soon be a way to volunteer to be a monitor at the Canal Alliance events.
I know there was an organization that was training observers.
Yes.
Legal
They-
observers,
they're-
I think.
Yeah, I'm aware of that group. They don't need more people. Their training is very extensive. It's really a very skilled role, and they have enough people. They're not
Okay.
currently offering the training.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Bill.
Sorry, question about boycotts. Are
Yes.
there any in the pipeline? Have you found them effective?
Well,
For instance,
there are many in the pipeline, as I just mentioned a little bit ago, there's the no shopping day on Friday. There's going to be a Amazon boycott for a week, so more and more, and there's a group that's leading on that. Within a week, I will commit to within a week, I will have a web page on our website that provides more links for you all to find the various opportunities that relate to consumer activism. I will say, because in a prior life, I did work, well, I don't need to get into the details, but just that sometimes people are a bit naive about boycotts in that the number of people that would need to stop shopping at Amazon to change anything that Jeff Bezos does is, probably in the millions, hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. And honestly, it is hard to get people to stop doing something that serves them. A lot of people are attacked. So there's a question of realism about, a decision we might make. I mean, encourage all of us to use our own morals with how we spend our dollars just so we feel better. We don't want to support Jeff Bezos. We stop shopping at Amazon. But I will get emails from people saying, let's all boycott Amazon. And it's just not that easy. But I do like what is happening now from some of the groups leading on this is where they're setting the parameters like a week, right? Because you could say, yeah, we can all not shop at Amazon for a week. And then hopefully with a more realistic ask, the numbers will be bigger and it will resonate, and even if it doesn't impact their bottom line, it would get, say, media attention. So I think there is a benefit in these economic actions. So we should support them. Thanks, Bill. Anybody else have their hand up? I'm not seeing that.
Nick has his
Nick.
hand up. Yeah.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, a general question. What are some common pitfalls for someone that's new in this space to be wary of?
I didn't quite catch pitfalls for what?
Things to be watchful of, things that might seem like enticing ideas but are not good ideas. Things to just maybe like
That's a really
know.
excellent question. Well, increasingly, and this isn't just political, but in our lives, the amount of bad actors, scammers, fraudulent people out there, I think we all have to be very vigilant about our digital security. I'm not as up to speed on that as I think I want to become. And this is another area that, I would welcome some help, because like somebody said to me recently, who's an organizational leader, we should all be freezing our credit, or I don't know, those companies like Experian and stuff like that. I think we all do need to be more careful about security, identity theft and things like that. And I think we also need to do our homework again. Like, you read that some groups saying, oh, everybody do X, Y, and Z. Well, do a little due diligence. Who is that group? Like, I don't know, are you in Marin, Nick, by any chance? So here's an example of something really weird and creepy that happened here in Marin. So we have this performance center. It's called the Marin Center, and concerts are there, and speakers and all kinds of things. Well, we learned through some of our members who got an email from the Marin Center that this weird AI speaker was coming, and it referred to, oh, now that Musk controls the government spending, this is an opportunity. And it was like going to Mars. It was just weird, right? So, I mean, we alerted our member of Congress, Jared Huffman, who actually was very responsive. He was like, oh, whoa, we didn't know about that. We'll look into it. And so anyway, it's just an example of like, let's all be on our toes. If you see something and it looks a little weird, one flag for me is if something is not grammatical, poorly written, it's often AI or a bot, or, so we just have to be really savvy. I don't know. Am I answering your question? I'm not quite sure if that's what you meant.
Yeah, it was just more of a general
Right.
question. But yeah, that definitely helps answer it.
Yeah. I
would
mean,
be
we
careful
all
about-
need to be careful.
Giving money to all these people who are hysterical. I'm now running for those text messages that are asking for money. You have no idea if they're legitimate. And I think we are going to have a web page on how to donate strategically on our website. Like, where do you want to spend your money? But Lori does all this analysis, and Lori, you want to talk about it when we do recommend to a candidate or a cause, it will, because that money is needed and will really make a difference.
I'm
So
really glad Betsy raised that,
don't
because
send money to people who text
this
you.
is something that is of concern to a
Yeah.
lot of people in the grassroots, the proliferation of hysterical fundraising, both email and texts. And, personally, I unsubscribe or write stop to all of them. And they keep coming. So it's like a daily chore. But I would never contribute on the basis of receiving one of those. And we will be offering guidance on good places to donate electorally. But also I can say, just in the meantime, a great place right now to donate is to some of the legal groups, like Democracy Forward has filed quite a number of suits. Public Citizen, ACLU, of course, is always good. Common Cause, I think those are all good organizations. And Indivisible National is doing great work and could use your money. So for now, those are some ideas, and we will get up a webpage with more ideas, especially related to elections. But of course, the Wisconsin race, that's where they have donated directly to the candidate, right, Lori?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Susan Crawford is her name.
And, feel free to email us with questions. We really try to be responsive. do us a favor and first look on the website or first use Google, don't have us be your first, I used to, I have a kind of sassy millennial daughter, and I used to like text her and say, oh, how do I do this on Instagram? And, she'd be like, Mom, Google it, So let's all first try to find out our own answer. But if you're stuck and it's more nuanced, please write us info@indivisibleMarin.org. We do get back to people. We do our best.
Yeah, and I think, it's such a great question. I think, make sure that any protest you go to has a permit.
Yeah, but
you-
Lori,
you-
it's not always possible to make sure. That's the problem with these.
Well, do as much as you can. They should have a point person. There should be somebody in charge of it. Try to identify that and make sure they have a permit. That's really critical to make sure that they're going to have security there and go through all of that. And I think just to highlight what Susan said, just do your homework, because it's so different than elections. Things happen so quickly. Information comes out so fast, and some of it's not right coming from our side. So everybody has to, I think, sort of up their game as far as news consumption goes, and not, like Susan said, don't get overwhelmed by trying to read every single thing that comes into your box. If you have sources that you feel have really done right by you over time, stick with them and just do your homework. But be prepared for the fact that it changes hourly. It just really does change hourly.
Yeah. Katie?
Yeah, so related to this, I did click on one of your emails, I think it was, and there was a link about how to, things to think about when it comes to your personal safety, your security. If you're going on protests, there were lots of tips. I thought it maybe was from Leah, but I don't recall for sure. But I just found it to be a really useful link and very informational.
Yeah, great. I think
good information.
I think that National has put out, and we did put those links on our webpage, the protest rallies webpage. We have a section on tips for security. But those are more related to at a protest rally, not so much internet security. But I would like to get some information pulled together related to internet security for people at some point. Okay, it's 6:03. Thank you all. Oh, just quickly, for a show of hands, how many of you are new to IndiMarin since the election? Would you raise your hand? Awesome. That's amazing. That's great to see. Thank you so much for joining the fight. And to everyone who didn't raise their hand, thank you for staying in the fight. We appreciate all of you so much. And
We'll post a recording.
we'll post a recording, and just my parting words, and this is what keeps me going. Maybe naively, I do believe that good will prevail, and it may be a long haul, but the more that each of us in our daily life can add to the good in the world, the sooner we'll reach our goals. Good night, everyone.